schools in the UK are going to be shut until at least March the 8th. Truly is, in amongst all of the kind of getting used to the way the world is in the last year, truly is bizarre. You know, back in my day, school being kind of indefinitely shut for the reasons that are flying around now would have been my idea of heaven. It really would. It's been a bit of a theme recently with my vlogs about being forced into a position in life, or feeling forced. It's not a literal hand guiding you, it's just the subtlety of disapproval. And I think a lot more people relate to it than let on when you have led a life in the skin that you were allotted, but the psychological output is something which is only truly you when all the cameras are off, the lights are turned off and you're alone in bed at night. Just saw two guys in a park back there talking to each other within about a foot of each other. You know those people who just encroach on your personal space? They seem to both be guilty of it. They weren't two people who lived with each other, and the fact that they were talking to each other about, you know, like a foot apart, just thought, has the last year just occurred to other people and not others, you know? Or some people and not others. And I thought, when does affectation and just trying to create your own persona, when does it become a kind of a problem and an illness? Because they were talking to each other in terms and physical gestures and stuff that was just, it was crackers, you know? God, there's a hardcore damning of a situation. They were utterly crackers. But you know, it's a fine line, isn't it? When does our want to be perceived a certain way bridge the gap between fantasy and mental illness? I know I've certainly breached that gap a few times in my life when I think back. Been thinking about the rather insidious subtleties of compromise. Back when my last relationship started, I made a request which was really a demand of my new partner to not communicate with her ex. I said, you both need time to reinvent what and who you are. And you know, she'd made the decision to leave him, and I said, you know, you've got to give him time, you've got to give him space to look at a world without you. How noble of me. Truth of the matter was, he's much taller than me, much better looking. You said he had a big willy as well. You know, there's your truth. And compromise kicks in, and initially it's just, yeah, anything's worth backing off from for the love of this man or the love of this woman. But we've all been there, and all too soon the compromises and the requests get far too regular to be anything other than an intrusion once the honeymoon period's over. How many of you recognise that one? Oh, here's a typically British reaction. The weather is mild and spring-like today. In fact, I'm too warm with my coat on, but I've got no way of just carrying it. And I start a video probably for the first time ever without mentioning the weather. As time went by, the irony is that me and my ex had a very open and honest relationship, but it was ultimately tainted by probably compromises we both made initially, but it has to be said that the burden is heavily upon me with regards to my insecurities about life. She wasn't old enough to have, or mad enough to have acquired the amount of insecurities that I had, still have. The trouble is, compromise can come in such subtle tones initially, and then eventually it becomes something that you realise, I'm not actually, when they're all put together, you know, the sum of their parts and all that, you realise, hang on a sec, I'm becoming a completely compromised person as opposed to making compromise, you know, which is a completely separate entity in itself. A male friend of mine many years ago, started a relationship, and he said to me, this beautiful woman in his life, her insecurities had led her to ask him, can you not use things like Messenger? You know, just typing to your friends and the like. And you know, I know a lot of nefarious activity can occur due to that, and if ever you mention the subject a few years down the line, it's very sheepish about it. And I noticed recently that he's obviously deleting comments as he goes, so his chat log is empty, because I sent in quite a sort of intense exchange, talking about feelings and emotions and how life's gone for us both. Obviously a conversation he needed to have with me, you know, not anyone else. He got a bit overzealous obviously at one point, or maybe nearly got caught in the act, and I sent a message and it's remained completely unviewed at my end. Claims to have never got it, you know, and I just find myself thinking, I don't believe you. I know exactly why you're doing what you're doing, but if you're in a situation where you're feverishly deleting communication with completely innocent platonic friends, you know, if you're doing that for somebody, you're in a situation where you need to look at the rest of your relationship and think, how much is this compromise? How much is this me bending into a shape that isn't me? You know, it's such a shame to see people who are, you know, they're both damn good people, but there are insecurities there. We all know what life's like with regards to sort of getting to a certain point and having insecurities, but it's just such a shame seeing people basing relationships on lies. So strange, isn't it? At a certain point with our interpersonal relationships, it's like when you have a child and there is a day where it's the last time you will ever in that way pick your kid up, give them a piggyback, you know, they're just too old and it won't happen again. There is a last time that you do it, you know, and there is a straw that breaks the camel's back in all friendships and relationships, where the same thing happens with our tolerance for compromise. We realise this isn't compromise, this is me being somebody I'm just not, and I'm having to lie to be the person I truly am. Still dedicated to my friend, my lover, what have you, but I can't be doing with all of this cloak and dagger, pretending we're not communicating, that kind of thing. And you know, I see it in my life, it's happened in your life no doubt, and it's these little things that are the insidious evils that lead us into situations like with the analogy of last time you pick your kid up. There's that day, isn't there, where the compromise just goes too far and somebody just thinks, right, I can't communicate with this person before, and the insidious evil of not being able to talk to your other half kicks in. In the last decade I've met 3 people who, when I've looked into their eyes, they have told me more than they actually realise just about how life is pulling them in so many directions, and ways in which are breaking them. But you know, their foundations are strong and they manage to maintain that illusion of being strong for everybody else, being the ultimate artist of compromise to please everybody else. And I don't think many people pay much attention to what people's eyes are saying a lot of the time. Maybe some people just don't see it. I know my mum's very good at reading people's expressions, and she's usually always right. If she says I could tell, you know, with my mum she'll usually say it in the moment and say, you know, this, you're not fooling me. And yeah, I've seen people's assumptions that other people are strong and can handle it, leading utterly broken and thankless existences. It's the reason I talk about the minutiae of life, those tiny little things where people are thankless. They have no gratitude in them. They understand not a jot of the tiny little gestures that other people make around them. You know, it's like when you're a kid, you know, a parent will say, oh, it's that fairy who comes and cleans your room up and magically takes all the plates downstairs and wash them up. Kids don't notice it, don't appreciate it, and you know, some adults, they never grow up yeah, they've got all the airs and graces of pretending they're an adult. I've got the right job, I wear the right clothes, I've got the right car, but I'm still a fucking child who thinks there's a fairy who cleans everything up, you know. And I think that in my life I wouldn't tolerate it now, and I'd have the sort of mental fortitude to deal with it. But you know, when people say to you, God, is that all you've got to worry about? No, this is one single fractured piece of a massive story, you know. And don't ever let people put the apparent minute nature of your gripes down when you know they're part of a bigger picture. As with my mum, there's buses coming up this road. It's really unusual. Somewhere must be shut, I guess. In fact, you've seen this road enough to know that you never see buses on it. Just like my mother, I can see with pretty usual, well, I can normally see with accuracy, I should put it, the truth of the hurt in people's eyes, you know. It's not a gift that elevates anyone above anyone else. It's just, you know, you might be good at this, I'm good at that. I'm all too willing to put myself down. I'm also willing to talk about what I'm okay at, you know. And it's such a shame to look into people's eyes who are looked upon as being so strong and so rigid, and they're being so brutally compromised in their lives that it leads you to wonder who they truly are. You know, who the kid running in the pastures truly is. You know, that person untainted through immaturity with the wants and demands of the world that bend us into shapes that we never were. God bless. Take it easy.